and Design Studies Ecology Summit. How's everybody? Thank you for all being here. I hope the pizza is good. And so today we're very pleased to have Mr. Jibin from Syracuse Architecture with us, sharing his work in his studio in China. And we're also very happy to have our guest, Dennis also teaching the architecture department. And yes, and I think I'd like to have Stan take the stage and introduce Jibin, and then we can start.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure for me to
Please stand in front of the.
stand in front of.
Yeah.
We have a Zoom.
Oh, you have a
recording.
Zoom audience.
No audience.
No audience. It's Zoom recording.
There's no
Okay,
Zoom audience?
Just close to
All right,
here.
so
that's
it's
fine.
like a fake audience.
Yeah.
Okay, hello. It's a great pleasure for me to be here to present to you Mr. Jibin, who is one of the most distinguished interior designers of contemporary China. I actually was introduced to him online by a mutual acquaintance of ours, and I was introduced point blank on WeChat, and Jibin was in New York at the time, and I was here, and there was no way for us to quickly get together and have a meal. And so the meal was deferred until this week when we had several. They were very, very good meals. And during the meals, I discovered that our mutual acquaintance, Fan Ling, who introduced us, had a rather unusual connection with Jibin. Fan Ling is a DDES graduate of this school, and who, unlike most graduates of this school, did not set up a company recently evaluated at more than 1 billion renminbi in China. And Jibin has the distinction of being the first angel investor of the firm. And apparently, he received a quick call rather urgently and agreed right away to provide a substantial amount to Fan Ling's little fledgling company at that stage. And it is a company that eventually grew to have important collaborations with the top 500 companies in the world. Jibin was a very kind person, as you can see, and the title of his lecture today, The Kindness of Design, is not something that you simply brag about in terms of your work, but it is something to do with one's basic orientation to one's community, that if someone called you and tapped you on the shoulder, you are generous about it. So in the dinners that we have had recently, sometimes he says very little. Sometimes he has quite a lot to say, but never for one moment would one get the impression that he had rather little to say, but a lot of words. In other words, there is a match between the word count and the substance of the remark. So I take this to be a very good sign of what we're about to see in the PowerPoint that he's presenting, that there is a close connection between a certain sense of doing less with what might otherwise be a rather prolix job. So the clients that he has had tend to be rather privileged, and he has done quite a large number of pro bono works as well. So he stretches his work both from the projects where in the pro bono projects there is quite a lot of constraints in terms of budget and so on. And then in the other kind that he is not at liberty to divulge to you today, he has an unlimited budget and his clients complain that he's not spending enough. So that is the rather remarkable career of the guy that I have the honor of presenting to you. And there are kind of tidbits of his past. He runs a foundation called the C Foundation, which a few years ago, because of the anniversary of Iron Pay, there was a celebration between Harvard and Hong Kong, where there was a very privileged dinner I heard about secondhand, where the Bank of China in Hong Kong opened up a very, very private, tall sort of dining hall space for the conference dinner that they had. And the C Foundation was a principal donor of the event. So this is one more of the connections that we're about to establish between the GSD and a very distinguished designer. Would you please welcome Jubin?
Thank you, Professor Fong. Okay, many thanks to Harvard ChinaGSD invitation. The Professor Fong is a warm introduction. Before I begin my speech, I would like to share a video for my story. In 2017, the Harvard JSC and the University of Hong Kong organized two symposiums for 100 years. Okay, and I am paid. Okay, wait. As one of the founder of the Z Foundation, aka 创基金, a non-profit foundation aims to facilitate design thinking in China. I had the honor and the sponsors and planned this event, and therefore developing a deep relationship with some of the professors and friends from the Harvard. Thank you for inviting me to share my perspective today. Okay. I topic my speech is the kindness of design. As a designer, I always ask myself what design is and what I design for. I think design is a career for designer to discover themselves and the world. We are participants, and we can become with a witness, with the positive energy. We can clearly feel the nature and the development orders of all things, and we can do something, small things around us with kindness. I founded the horizontal design in Shenzhen in 2003. Now in Shenzhen and Beijing, we have 85 colleges with diverse and international background, and they are very young and talented. Okay. In the past 5 years, our team has designed more than 100 projects of the different types, meaning cultures and lifestyle spaces. I'm very interested in different and similarity between East and West culture and beyond. I focus on the humanistic culture, landscape relationship, and the construction method in traditional Chinese garden, especially how to transfer them into contemporary space, and the construction and reshaping of the skill, atmosphere, space, and emotion. I'm sorry, my English is low level. I love traditional Chinese painting and decoding from the two-dimensional space of the painting and the parallel art to produce inspiration links with the contemporary space. Yeah, I travel a lot worldwide every year to visit famous architecture. You can fit in the chair of the building by seeing it with your own eyes and touch by your hand. We should pay attention to regional difference. It's built up the architecture style and the living culture of the different religions, and makes us full of hopes and dreams in this first moving words. Today, I would like to show 6 the five different small projects. The first is the Zhangyan Cultural Museum. It's a project for China, natural, lab built for countryside construction plan. Our design strategy have the three aspects: preservation, growth, and rebirth. We proposed an idea of the metabolism and responded the connect between old building, preservation, and regeneration. The project is located in the suburb of Shanghai. The developer has been granted the development authority of the more than 4 million square meters, including transformation of the existing village and the new construction of the residence, schools, hospitals, and control facade like this. Zhangyan village was a prosperous water town during the Ming and the Qing dynasty from the 13th century. At the side, there are builds from the different periods. Most of the young people have lived in the village. They work and live in Shanghai. Only elderly and children are still here. In this project, we designed a culture center to display the history here and to reactivate this old village through the various commercial programs. We did a lot of that model. This perfect protected historical building and ruin on the side. Besides, there is also a new addition. Old building embody the history and the culture of the old village. So we consolidated and protected the old building. For growth, the new building grows in nature out of the old connect with the new function of the form as a side. We see the old walls with 100 years of history and some building compartments. We marked them of the circles. The rebirth, some contemporary building, both from the vacant part of the site. The new addition to contact the language to echo with the traditional atmosphere, the design perspectives, old tree and old walls. The construction used white concrete. So we also applied the Eastern style, those stone as a part of the architecture. Of course, water is an important element in our design. It's not only the material, but also can bring emotion just like the light. At the opening, oh, sorry. The owner organized I believe there's a design strategy of the preservation growth birthday is a suitable model for Chinese new construction. It's bringing many interested and engaging activities between cities and villages. A new path lets the more people set the hope. The other architecture design the other side. Mm. Yeah, that speaks and Professor Fei Wang have visited the site. Mm. And Professor Wang wrote an essay on it. It was also published in Architecture Record. It won the top 10 museum of the years by Design. Mm. It's a bit. Okay, the second project is the Mother's House Library. The project is for famous reality TV show called Dream Home, 梦想改造家, which is to renovation a house in the live show. It's a famous writer Cai Chongda, housed in the small town, a country city, Jinjiang in Fujian province. He described this house in his book, No More Than Skin Pinang, and the book has showed 4 million copies. The house carries many family memories. In this 6th-floor building, we designed a shared space and the public library for locals, and the private living space for the family. The people in the small fishing town have 2 ways to make a living. Also, their life philosophy, asking for the sea nearby, or asking for the ocean, 淘小海,淘大海. It means choosing the shallow sea not far from the truth to catch fishing, or sailing far away to break into a new world. This present different choices of the fact in life. The local life there is simple, and there are many different religions, Buddhist, Christian, Catholic, and local religions can coexist there. People are incorporated to leave the small town to make a living. When they return after earning money, they build a house in this hometown, symbolizing the sources and the family and the individual. People always donate to build a school. This picture clearly shows the build texture of the small town. As there is a lack of the urban planning, there are many handshaking buildings very tight to each other. Outside is among larger areas of the handshaking buildings. Yeah. This house before renovation was the house of the writer Cai Chongda's mother. In his book, the describes how difficult the house was built. Meanwhile, it also reflects in life of the Chinese family during the Jiangjin period of the China. Narrow alleys, and not enough nature light, and the privacy between neighbors are the biggest challenges of this project. In our design, we will focus on 3 aspects. Okay. How to make public space and private living space coexist in new building. The public space is open to the locals, and it becomes the cultural center of the small town with public activities and library. The living space is private. It has a rich courtyard, a neighborhood relationship and transparency. When buildings in the neighborhood are close to each other, how to solve the bad side problem? Light passes through the translucent interface, creating dark light and shadow and presenting the layer of the transparencies, patch and courtyard. How to place a patch learned to versus layer between the building masses and the translucent interface. Set back by 1 meter or 3 feet is an important strategy in our design. It also shows the kindness between the building and the neighborhood. It's a model. Different areas that have different opening ceremonies. This picture, Mr. Tsai's mother are praying at the site. Meanwhile, the good or wise, ritual, and the prosperity, the feng shui, are reflected in design. Therefore, designer need to produce a construction drawing with 14 figures. This is quite interesting for me. But some of the implied meaning of the beauty harmony is present through the decoration. After completion, many active book sharing sessions and celebrate speeches took place in the public space. Besides, old people often enjoy the calling here at Kent's place around there. The library on the second floor has attracted many visitors. Meanwhile, students will also read book and do homework here after school. Mr. Tsai's mother lives a private space upstairs. She likes to talk to the visitors and the children and living the full and the color life. It's a picture is Mr. Tsai is showing his family photo. On the top floor, there is a small garden and room where artists often stay. There are opportunities for artists from the different countries and regions to live here for the period of time to experience the local culture. At the same time, this has also brought about new energy to this small town. Mr. Tsai's book is a TV drama show now. Meanwhile, the film is also in production. The book's TV mode have the big impact net weight. I think this might also be aware of the kindness from the design. Yan Temple. The project is the Buddhist temple, also one of the favorite project. The focus on the folding project. Two. The project located inside the mountain for Yan City, Sichuan province, China. The site has beautiful like valleys, rivers, stone mountain, and a nasty plantation. Meanwhile, it's also in China most active earthquake built. Many people believe that religion can protect their safety and health. Our owners are quite legendary. They are devoted, boasted. Many years ago, they came out of the mountain village to the big city to open a small restaurant. The established their own business by selling cakes. They build up the empires and grows stronger, and launched a number of dining brands. In daily life, they visit the temple and make in different places. They hope to building temple with the money they have earned. I also have the habit of the meditation every day and meet many people doing charity work through meditation. Therefore, I was moved by their devotion and their pursuit and decided to take this project. It's our site. There is a very huge difference the elevation on the site, and we wanted to adapt the building with the terrain, and at the same time, it needed to combine with the climatic condition and the concern about the river and the tree on the site. Religious building have the strict requirement for the orientation, sight line, and the retro procedure to respond to snow mountain is also an important aspect in our design. You can see the snow mountain from the site. Close to the site, there is the Yunfeng Temple with 15 years history, the largest and the most influential religious activity in young areas. Different Buddhist activity are always held here. It's of great help for us to understand the combination of the local culture with religion. The local resistance and material provide us with a good inspiration. A charm of being an architect is that you always fall in love with different projects in your career. The love can be several months and many years. We hope to integrate architecture into nature and maintain its own expression. It should not only reflect the wisdom of Buddhism, but also show the carry of the human emotion in different spaces. The Buddhist ceremony has held on site. Over the past 3 years, construction work has been stopped several times due to the COVID pandemic. The pandemic has affected the income of the settling industry, and the owner don't have enough fund to promote this project. I believe that their heart of the kindness bring good luck. We should thank them for their love and goodness. Keep listening. Can you hear anything? Yeah. You heard the silence. Silence is also the kind of sounds. We just pay attention to what is variable and audible most of the time. But ignore the visible, these things is like our design. We want to design good work all the time. In fact, refraining from the design can also be a good design. A wise designer is able to recognize and understand to empathize the Jiansan calculate culture. I remember when I visited the site 4 years ago, President picked me up at the station on the way to his culture in the countryside, with the religion music playing in the car. Window open, he would tell me stories about the local religion and his dream to build the culture. The priest host various activity for local villagers, including burying the past ways, blessing the married, paying for the student to take a university entrance exam. Spreading the knowledge for love among the pupil and resolve the family conflict for the church memory. It's a cost town, just like a project of the Mother's House Library. It's also located in Fujian. the intention of the building is church is to private the place and the locals together. The villager and the president try to seek for my guard and look for their inner views. And then we will think other questions. Villager, he can see the ocean every day. How can we make them since the ocean as never see it? Let space become the tool to perceive the ocean. The space directly connect humans and the ocean together. We hope that the main building is poor and clear. However, it should have the coexisting of the contraction and the harmony with the nature. When studying, you can see the sea and the sky through the long window. When the sitting, you can look at the sky or the dome and listen to the sounds of the waves and the sound of the garden. The sign of the sun and the fading of the nature reflection are both in expressions. The family and the priests rise and witness the construction process together. The village and the family made history together. The private invited the very high bishop and the opening ceremony, combining Eastern and Western culture. The family next to the construction said vacated 2 rooms to use as office and display space for model. Supervision often the lead local villagers to construct buildings at the site. We basically show the local material, including big rocks use the strategy element. When I see it's a bird nest and the construction had to stop again. We tried to help the priests find some of the sponsored. I invited neighbor Thai, a leading Chinese structural materials company, to develop a facade tile specific codes made for this project. It is inspired from the colorful inside of the oyster. There should be the LED light in the concrete to create the starry sky. And the video. The month before I come to the US, the priest sent me a photo in which the villager win worship at the culture for the first time. I also see the tree planted 3 years ago, and it's growing quite well. I believe that when we look up the star, our life will be filled with hope and love in front of the sacred power. The final project, let's return to city where I live. Shenzhen is the fastest growth city in the world. On the basis of the old industry buildings, our project aims to create the holistic community that can meet the carried lifestyle. We were faced with the following problem: how to update the industry buildings, how to build the communal center, how to connect the human and the space. This can be a warm place where people are willing can connect with each other, a place where we can learn and grow. We place different programs. Yeah, exhibition hall, public up shopping, dining space, holiday event, or reading room. In this way, people with similar values can stay together and spread in the innovative energy. We can describe here by one sentence, love this life. In design, we placed different functional modules inside and outside. Is industry building with the concept of the aerobic skill. We tried to enhance their unique through the materials and the colors concept. Yeah. We have the style with the strong character, industry, loved cafes, local style restaurant, reading room with a selected art and a different book. Many activities happen here. They have formed many stories between people, animal, and nature. Okay. Yeah. In the end, I'd like to okay. I'd like to conclude what we focused on. The restore our relationship with the nature, focus of the regenerism and the historical contact, control of the atmosphere and the mood of the space, methodology of the showing images and the construction. They established the place spirit of the human and the community, the foundation and the beginning of the everything needed the kindness in the design. Thank you. I'm so sorry. My English is a low level.
Thank you, Judy. I think the work is impressive. A lot of construction process and a lot of appreciation with the local film. So anybody have any question? We have like 2 minutes. We can do the page with research. Okay. So it's really nice to see like what you are and I can see you have to like feel even in the process like during the construction like informal moments because I used to like in the like the resident designer so like really communicating engagement so I can also see the romance feeling the method of design of the construction process so it's really neat. I have like question for the project like that's I think I forgot maybe the second one so that's building in the commercial village and the setback for 1 meter. So I remember in the model it had like the facade that's like after the like for the final project is there like losing is that kind of like an interesting story?
No money.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah.
Like,
对，我得用中文说了哈。
okay.
对，那个实际上我用英文讲的话，很难把我这里边的故事给讲出来，主要是实在是表述不了。但是刚刚你提的那个，当时他们都没有预估到里边的风险，就是蔡东达先生他个人对这个项目的认知，还有电视台他们的认知都没有到位。所以呢，我当时做完之后呢，外立面我就去找了那个Steam Hall 在青岛做那个项目外立面的供应商，我们都已经谈好了。结果到最后所有人都没有钱了，但是节目又必须得播出，所以你们就看到了现在未完成的，接下来还有继续完工的一个项目。这里边教堂还有图书馆还有寺院，今天放的所有的项目都是都和我们做那些大项目没关系，我们就会做一些这种也会有一些商业类的项目对公司进行一个平衡。今天给大家带来都是这种对我很重要，我很愿意我就愿意和他们在一起的这类的事情。 所以不管是就是文化馆，除了第一个项目是和政府有关，后边那个项目全部是和个体的个人的有关系的。对，不好意思啊，我感觉当我用中文说的时候，我又回来了。Okay, thank you.
Is the reason the facade looks like that is like Mr. Jubin really wants work referring towards the completion. So there are a lot of uncertainties and risks during the process, especially the limited budget, and they want to push this work, into the public. So when they coordinate with the like a TV site, so they want to publish this to the online. So towards the completion, they find this kind of a middle range to finish the work. So this facade is maybe making with all kind of materials like brick.
允许给我两分钟时间，让我补充一下这些信息啊。
I think
对
he wants to add something.
就第一个项目是一个城中，就是那个美丽乡村建设项目。实际上，这个对于中国非常的重要，因为中国现在急速的发展，所有的靠近城市的乡村都在被同化、被赶上楼，然后就各种方式都有。所以我们做这个项目呢，后来就成了上海市政府的一个示范性的一个单位。当时背后的故事，我去汇报的时候，政府没有通过我的方案，因为他感觉这个方案太旧了。后来就当然了 ，anyway， 最后就是建成之后，同济大学又来统筹了这个事情。同济大学邀请了同济的大概有8位建筑师，在这个厂家又继续再去做一些事情，所以现在这个村庄已经焕发了活力，所以这是比较可惜的。对。
So this is the first one.
Yeah.
So the first project, it's really about understanding like Chinese current urbanization because it's really fast in recent decades. So it leaves a lot of pressure to a lot of villages that it cannot react to the shift. So it gives designers some leverage to help these villages to find an alternative to develop. So yeah, so basically this work is very meaningful in a way that we're finding a new way to create a new idea for this. Yeah, but there are a lot of pressure from the government, from the local community. So yeah.
对，第二个项目呢，主要是对我认为很重要的是，因为它最后变成了整个那个一个城中村的一个活动中心，楼下是一个公共的，2楼是个图书馆。当时接这个项目的主要原因是因为它太难了，就是它车辆进不去，你要怎么去完成这个事情？而且6层楼的话，下边是公共的，上面是住的，又比较符合我想做一个就是这种公共和私密在一起的。这在国内的这个设计师当中，我们比较难遇到这样项目。要不就是地产开发，我们必须遵守；要不就是你去做民宿了啊。你唯一要想盖房子，又能有公共性，又能介入城市和这个城市发展当中，所以第二个项目是比较有趣的一个项目，对我来讲。
So the second project to Mr. Jubin is he really liked this project because in China a lot of it's called urban villages. So in between these buildings, there are very limited distance, as you can see, like you really can touch them with each other, different buildings. So from the design and construction side, it's very, very challenging because the car cannot really enter the space. Yeah, and because that building has this 2 levels, the first level is more like public and the second is more private. So it really meets the design concept with the studio. So yeah.
对。
I hope I just
对，第3个项目主要是和宗教有关，第3个这都和宗教有关，这对我来讲也是非常感兴趣、很重要的
Yeah, and a
项目。
lot of this work, as you can see, is related to the religious concept, the cultural aspects. So that's mainly the concept of the studio. I have a question. So for example, the second work, you're choosing the concrete as the main material. Is there a way that you, I don't know, like if your team has think about what would be the most economic construction way to like realize the idea? Because I don't know, like in the urban village, they may have their own community cultural in design and construction. And I see a lot of work you have this engagement with the local community, like for the second one. The second one. Like I see a lot of like very minimalism style with concrete. But I just wonder, like, is there a way that you involve the Chinese way of construction?
大家都比较关心这个，哈哈。对，这个外立面是确实比较就比较贵一点啊。但是呢，这个因为它实际上最重要的就是这个外立面，就这个外立面没做成，它里面需要有一套钢结构系统来支撑里边的这一块一块烧制的这个砖，我还是想在我现在盖的所有的这些小房子，都是几个原则对我很重要，就是不要多浪费更多的空间，这第一个。第二个就是不要有任何设计的这种炫技啊，就是尽量不要对自然进行破坏，然后而且要让你的这个房子和人产生连接之后，里面承载的故事是什么。就这是我在意的，所以其他的所有的这些我们讨论这些方法论什么这些，我个人不在意，我在意那种情绪、氛围、真实，还有和人连接之后的那种对真实吧，对，就这意思。
So for Mr. Jubin, all throughout the work, what he wants to show is this kind of emotional narrative of this and the truth behind this design. So there were several points. Like the first is in all the work, as you can see, like we want to celebrate this what we call spatial efficiency. So we don't want to waste space. We want to use every corner to design something for the local community. And the second, I think this is he wants to use a very like a humble way, not like we want to show this kind of special like let's limit it to kind of humble, not being too creative and too unrealistic. So like all this construction and design, as you see, is simple, it's achievable, and it's humble from the design aspect.
Yeah. 像这个项目，在这个条件下，你就放弃你所有的技法了，你只能有什么用什么。
Yeah, and because of the limitation and the risk and uncertainty, sometimes you have to give up. You have to find this middle zone when you design. So, yeah.
I have a follow-up question. I think we touched on the point when we were talking about one of the principles in the design is to form connection between the minimum material, the minimum space. My question for you is, what do you think is your work, the best way to connect these, and that kind of more specific way in your project? What is your relationship with the user? Do they know that you are the designer? What is the client-user relationship in your project? Like, who is the person who's sponsoring it? Who is there a survey that was done with the villagers wondering like what is this space supposed to be, how big it's going to be, how it's going to be used, where is this money coming from, and who is going to maintain it after it's built? 如果用中文说的话，其实就是我很好奇，就是在现在很多美丽乡村这些项目中， 就是建筑师跟村民的关系是如何，而且这些这么多的项目，就是请的设计师也好，请开发商也好，所有的东西里面，包括产权也好，包括使用性质也好，这些中间的人和人和地的关系是怎么被处理的？
对这个问题特别的好啊，就是可能很深刻的一个问题，有几个方面来回答吧。第一个就是，我们现在就是国家的一些政策，对于所有的非核心城区，就是一线城市、二线城市，他们每个地区都制定了不同的美丽乡村的政策，而且这个不同的政策呢，我们不去评论它好不好，但它带来一个状态或者说这个结果就是。我们面临的所有的这周边这些村庄的被改变，它不管是要上楼，还是说让你把宅地基腾空出来，我认为每一种方式它都会带来这个老年人和这个留守儿童的痛啊，这个是一个最核心的问题。相对于年轻人来讲，他离开这村庄就好了，他就进城打工去了。所以这是我们在做这个项目的时候看到的最多的，但是也是我们解决不了的。我们作为设计师，我们现在的能力能解决的就是在现有的政府给的政策里边，尽量的把你的这个基地做的公共性或者社会性更广阔一点，让这种广阔性提供个平台，让以后的商业可以回归。商业一旦回归之后，它启动了这个乡村。最后，它就会让年轻人在回流。我们现在就作为建筑师，你的思考已经到了那个，就比如我们思考的很深，但是我们无法做到，就因为我们只能做我们现在就这样一个工作。但是如果再往远处说，我认为现在的国内这个步伐不但没有停止，而在加速。就整体的这个美丽乡村是从这些一线城市已经到了5线城市啊，我们现在已经在信阳这样的就是中国的5线城市，他们也在干这个美丽乡村，很快就会到这个山区。对，你又能做什么呢？对，你唯一能做的就是做好你这个房子这个场所，还有尽量能连接更多的能量就行了。I'm sorry， 我应该给你断一下哈，对，把你给忘了。
Like my memory is really good, and I'm trying to like understand this process because also when I learned from a lot of Chinese urban classes, it's like current Chinese urban policy is problematic. It's kind of extended, let's say the disparity among different cities, tier 1 to tier 5, it's like it caused a lot of problems. Like from Mr. Jubin, who said young people, but a lot of kids or elder people, they're really suffering from this like quick shift of this urban development. Like there are like tons of skyscrapers around this village, and people are living there, and then they have a hard time to find a proper livelihood for themselves. So as a designer, what you can do is like you can change 1 or 2 buildings, but just from a bigger scale, like you have to find a way to like being ambitious, find a way to kind of helping these people to accommodate. Yeah, and to adapt this kind of shift. So it's very challenging. Also, right now this process of urbanization seems not stop. It's getting faster in somehow. So it leaves a broad problem, not just in 1 or 2 cities, like the entire country is right now facing this issue, like how to deal with this vulnerable people. I think it's actually very challenging, and as you see, there are a lot of small projects here doing different programs, doing different, it's like a broad category of different buildings. So it's some inspiration for us to think about what we can do as an architect.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
I don't want to like stealing everybody's time, so if there's no more questions, I want to follow up on the answer proposal. Kind of following up on when you say that, I mean, I understand this, I feel like a lot of the struggles of contemporary Chinese architects working in China, especially in zone where you don't know if the land policy is going for it, right? So you realize the limitation of versus the social responsibility as a designer. But you also mentioned that one of the goals in your project is within, like, while realizing the limitation, you want to bring commercial activities back to the village, right? 回归商业，有一些商业的活动能够回到乡村，所以吸引更多的年轻人回到乡村。Do you think that's why there's so many 网红建筑? Is that what everybody's trying to do? Because a lot of the 美丽乡村项目 literally, I don't feel they learned anything from whatever building that's already on site. It's so different. I feel like the way it looks, it feels like they wanted to stand out. Is that what you think is going to draw capital back to the village, and that's where all the village beautification projects are actually heading? No,
对呀，最好啊。
就是
对，等着呢，你就没说。
刚刚有提到说，虽然知道建筑师在这个语境下，的限制，但是提到就是说，很多项目其实最终是让商业活动能够回到乡村，所以就第一个问题 ，surface 就是表面上的说，是不是因为这样，所以有很多网红建筑的出现，特别是在美丽乡村上面。然后第二个问题就是。就是 follow up deeper level， 就深层一点的这个问题，就是现在很多美丽乡村项目，在很大程度上，在我眼里，或者个人我看来，有一个非常一致的审美，就是要非常与众不同。就是我觉得他们的在地性，并不是向在地学习，而是要从在地输出。所以。最终目的就是吸引更多的眼球，然后吸引更多的资金和投资。然后作为您的经验，在地这么长的时间，还有这些项目的经验，你觉得这个是整个很多的美丽乡村项目，其实大的方向是这样吗？
对，这又是一个大的话题哈。我在国内实践了20年了，就是从中国特别快速发展到现在把速度降慢，我是亲身经历的，然后我也是帮凶啊，对，然后也在做着自己就是力所能及的事情，但是有一点就是，首先美丽乡村是政府的一个意愿啊，包括这些词语的描绘都是他们的梦想啊，对。我是引用了这样一个梦想来诉说这样一个愿景。对于网红建筑这件事儿 ，OK， 你先把这段说了。对。
Yeah. So the question is, how you gonna react to currently towards the physical beautiful, like maybe something like beautiful village, projects in China. So a lot of what we call this grandstanding internet celebrity architecture emerged. So they're trying to be very, very unique. They're trying to be very special compared with others. So how you want to react to this trend? Right now, this beautiful village is actually supported by the government. It's an agenda that the Chinese government want to, they want to change the village, right? Yeah, and Mr. Zhu has participated in this entire process, like from urbanization. Right now, they're trying to shift this situation. So it's like 20 years of experience in this. So yeah, he wants to bring in kind of new insights
OK，对，这个网红建筑，这个我认为这不是中国的事情，这是全球的事情，而且也无法界定这个网红建筑就是要什么标准是网红建筑。我认为，建筑本身它如果能通过这个建筑的过程，这是我的理解，就到我当下这一刻，现在我还是动态的，因为我40多岁还早着呢啊，刚刚开始啊，所以后面还有40多年可以继续实践的。当然，我现在认为的就是建筑的主要的，对于我来讲的意义，它不是建筑本身，是因为建筑我们所学的知识，它只是实现我们和这个自我对话和世界的一个载体。建筑只是我个人和这个世界之间连接的载体，它不是我的目的。当然，我通过这个建筑这个载体，认知了更多和人和这个世界的关系，包括我和神父和他4年之间交流的这些内容。当然，因为你必须有一个载体来进行。但是具体到你这个建筑设计，你要怎么去设计，这个方法怎么做，然后你的在地性怎么去考虑，我说我们会根据每一个项目的地域的不同、钱的不同，还有OK，你是不是要翻译一下？还是我又说长了吗？OK，我说完这段话，对，所以我就是作为我来讲，我们在选择每一个项目的时候，它首先是真实的，是感动的，而且它可以把所有的那些标榜的这些东西可以给它拿掉的。说拿不掉之后，你也不要过于去宣传的，这是我的一个原则。所以有了这个原则之后，在我视野里面扫描的这些事情，都是和我的就这种内心的那种和场地，比如说我要去看场地，我在那待3天，个人给那场地上走，我要一个人待着，因为我要和这个场地之间产生一种感情和链接，这是我的方式啊。我不知道别人用，我也知道之前我看了那么多建筑师，大家都有不同路径进入到了建筑。但是因为我一直在做这个禅修的这样的一个身体的感受，我很愿意用我的直觉和我的这种体验去感知建筑最终的结果我不太在意说最近社会上又流行什么了，最近这个又要被标榜成什么，那些东西跟我没有关系啊。
So basically, Mr. Zhubin said the way he works with architecture is really wanting back to this idea of authenticity. So he see a lot of works online, but it's very hard to define which one is we call great understanding, like why this uniqueness is not good or what. So he doesn't want to put too much comments on it, but just throughout his work, he wants to bring this kind of communication using architecture as the medium to communicate rather than like we just want to achieve this outcome, like this physical outcome, but he want to celebrate this process from design to the construction. So for each of these projects in different places in China, he tried to spend a couple of days in one site and building this emotional connection with the site, with the surroundings, with the local people. For example, when they design the church, they try to talk with the priest for a long time to get what they want, and using your creativity, your insights, and build this kind of connection through design. So it's rather than saying, oh, this building, we want to achieve a kind of certain style or whatever. We want to kind of putting the focus on this process. Yeah, so it's a lot of, I mean, like also he said, he has this recent years, recent years he's entering this kind of meditation practice. So it also gives his a lot of inspiration when he wants to evolve this into the design. Yeah. And a lot of compromise for sure, because when you're trying to compete with other designers and also the pressure from the top investors, so there's a lot of compromise and negotiation.
对，如果补充几句话的话，就是 我比较关注的是，就是人不管是往前推到李白的时候，还是往后，人总有一种东西永远不会改变，就是那种你身体本能的情绪，你是永远不会改变的。不管你做到多高，还是做到乡下，还是在城里，在纽约，还是在信仰，有一种东西永远不会改变，是什么？我们要找到这个最恒定的东西，你和它链接。其他所有的被当下社会，如果现在我们谈这个问题，网红这个问题，30年之后没人讨论它，为什么？发现这个事情它的意义不大。我们要讨论的就是，或者不是讨论，我们应该瞄向的那个方向和目标就是，只要是你身体本能的控制不住的，必须永远在你身上的这个能量是什么？你要把它给链接挖掘出来，设计师和它产生链接，这件事儿就有趣了。这件事儿你就会有无限的可能性。你就不会特别在意，你要变成那个 Frank Gehry 那样的，还是变成祖母托这样的，这都不重要。这些它最终它就是因为那个场地和场所和房子，它自然生长出一个建筑的表情。那个表情没有美和丑，因为我们接受了很长时间建筑教育之后，我们用我们的那种武断，用我们的高压，用我们的精英的意识去说这就是美的，你们要用这样的美。像这个东西是一个非常怎么讲？对说完了，
When we talk about aesthetic or architecture, a lot of times, like we know a lot of famous architecture, and their architects they bring this certain style into this big global organization. So for right now, as a Chinese, when we're facing this kind of urban issue, what Mr. Zhibin want to bring is this kind of like a self-reflection. What do you want to be and how you gonna understand this site, these people, and even this environment? Can you develop a concept just from observing what you are doing and not putting your like outsider style onto this design? So yeah, it's bring you back to kind of what you believe inside. So basically it requires architects to have their very, what's this called, like calm, sober identity of what they are, who they are, and what kind of role they're playing into this shift, or just a transformation. So you have to build this connection with the site rather than saying, oh, I want to move this thing onto this side. Any questions? Thank you for the presentation. Very impressive. It good practice for me. Thank you, everyone. I think, it's a little bit out of our time, but I think the conversation is good, and I hope you guys all have some good insight to bring back. Thank you.
We'll offer you the backstory. The backstory will be in about 6 points. The first point has to do with
hello. So the first point has to do with the surprise that Zhibin has decided to present an unfinished work that has been suspended for lack of funds. This is not something that normally happens in the Harvard. And I think what he tacitly presents to you is a story of the difficulty of pulling things off. That it is not assured that just because you wanted to do something, you will get your way. And so the friction that happens when you try to implement something is what he presents to you in the raw. And this is in spite of any superficially good intentions that he also announces. So I would say that the base tone is the sense of difficulty in pulling things off. If you want to design a church, that's not something easy to pull off in China. If you wanted to do religious space, given all that has happened in the last 100 years in China, the imagination of religious space is not something that you take for granted. So even programmatically, there is something like that. If you want to build a house on a low budget, but turn the bottom 2 levels into a public amenity, that's not a programming that the authorities would greet you with open arms. So all of that is, the subtext is that we should not take it for granted, that it takes a lot of social nous to pull it off. The second issue has to do with the sense of light. That in some of the images of the light entering the interior or the light on the faces of the children, there is something, I think, that is being passed over but perpetrated. If you think about people born in the 1970s in mainland China and who are now in their late 40s or 50s, that generation in the last 10 years pulled off the one-to-one relationship between form and force in architectural design. So that previously, and still commonly, people might think about architectural form separate from architectural structure. And then the engineer would come online as an afterthought. But in the last 10 years, there have been a number of projects and a number of prominent practices where they learned what the Swiss learned and the Italians had learned 100 years ago. And this has released a new burst of energy. So if you think about the whole educational setup in China, regimenting a rather Anglophone separation between architecture and structural engineering for 100 years, and you suddenly release this fixed order, there is a new burst of possibility, which we are seeing in the work of the younger ones. What happened in interior design among the group born in the 1970s seems to be indicated by what Jubin has shown without discussing, which is a sense of light, that people don't bring their culture into the building. They bring their bodies into the building. And so how would your interior greet these bodies, the kind of the just body of the person in that space? There is, in some of these images, the light elevates both the sense of the person and the sense of the material, which most often are kind of cheap materials. So it is ennobling of the situation by the incoming of the light. And this light is shown on the surface of the body and on the surface of the body of the building. This, I think, is something unusual and unexpected in the discussion. We have already mentioned how it is not simple to bring children to play on your ground floor. This micro intervention in an informal settlement, these places were created because of a mass influx of villagers into urban areas, and they were not planned for. These people who just arrived with a need for accommodation. They were providing cheap labor for urbanization and for stuff we buy in America. So these places, which are informal settlements, were developed without public amenities. If you had children there, these people had nowhere to go. So to say that we would not only help one family improve its accommodation, but also in the same move allow a gesture of a public amenity, that I think is an unusual thing, and not every architect born in the 1970s had this kind of sense of intervention. In the recent dinners, there was one moment when I decided that Fan Ling was quite right to introduce us to each other. And this was at the moment when Jubin says, if you had a very early success in your career, like everyone here, if you had a very early success in your career, the way to move on is to develop relationships with others in which you did things for others. So you could have, as an early achiever, use all the resources available for you and the position by virtue of your Harvard degree to go and develop a career, and you can have super rich clients, and he does have super rich clients. But after you've had your nth super rich client, you realize that in fact you're not developing your practice, that you've just done more projects, your bank account has become more comfortable. But he says to me in the dinner that the way to move on as a designer and as a person is to help others. So you can see that he focuses on these projects of helping others without pretending that they are massively smooth successes in the way that we all are accustomed to if we go to the Piper, right? And every lecture is given as a kind of success story. So he presents this as a cycle that someone with early success, with the benefit of a huge economic boom behind your career, with super rich clients, and then you can do these projects in informal settlements in poor parts of town and so on. So this payback is not a feel-good public kind of good citizenship gesture. It is something that you realize deep down that for yourself, in order to develop yourself, it is the path that you follow. It is not just good taste public giving. The next one has to do with social media. If you want to develop villages, say 5 hours outside of a major first-tier Chinese city, most people wouldn't go there. But it is possible now with the super fast trains to go within a 2-hour, 3-hour perimeter of a major city, and on the weekends people would go. But how would they come to know that this particular village has a particular cool place that they can spend an afternoon at? So the social media becomes the tutorial space for allowing these things to be commercially viable. You can do the coolest thing in a village, but it's too far away or nobody knows about it. So the only way to have the public draw card is to go on the social media. But it seems that you've been rejected this. And a lot of Chinese architects born in the 80s and 90s are going along with this. But he rejected this mostly because he has the super rich clients that the other people, younger people, didn't have. But he also wanted to shift the focus to local people, that is the villagers. It's not an issue for the people in the biggest cities, most resourceful cities, to have an extra weekend foray. That's not the issue. It is not for them to consume the groovy places 5 hours outside. He focused on local people. What would they do with their religious life? What would they do with their kids in their everyday environments? So the programming that you saw was pitched like that. This is only possible as a choice, as a professional, because you had early success, because you had your pot of gold already tucked away somewhere. But not everyone with that early success had the nous to turn this way into the public good. In Buddhism, it is known, and this is the last point, that every sentient being has a light being. The person, in the presence of the person, emits a light. And this in modernism becomes this very strong sunlight that plays on the magnificent forms. So all through since Laugier to Le Corbusier, this harsh light shining, casting sharp shadows becomes the issue. In some of the Zhu projects, he does gesture to the language of the sharp forms. But in fact, as an interior designer, he reminds us that every sentient being has a light being. And he has occasionally in some of these images, the gestures of the light with an invisible light source out of the frame of the photograph. He presents this to you as a reawakening of the appreciation of the light being of the person. These people mostly are not greatly distinguished in high culture. They don't really have a very high average everyday income. But they have the dignity returned to them, and not as a matter of charity, but as a matter of kindness.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I hope you all have a great evening. Yeah, so early November, we will have